Hustlers, and today I wanted to discuss the Q3 earnings call for Joby Aviation and discuss what can we expect to see in the Q4 earnings call where we're going to be streaming here live on the Hustle Brothers. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you get the notification once it goes live. So strap yourself in. We're going to discuss the Q3 earnings call and what to expect in tomorrow's call. So I think the main takeaway from the Q3 earnings call was that Joby have a huge cash reserve. So they've got $710 million in cash or short investments, with an additional $222 million in equity that had just came in. And then they had the $500 million from Toyota, which was promised but was going to be split into 2 quarters. So we're going to see in tomorrow's earnings call whether that has been paid in by Toyota. And if it has, that is really going to bolster the cash reserve. But we also seen in this Q3 call that the cash burn at the moment was $115 million in Q3 alone. And I think this just sort of shows the sort of high cash burn for this sort of industry, because we're trying to trailblaze and form new regulations, but that research and development and getting this over the line is going to cost. This gave a 4-year outlook of $440 to $470 million. But let's not get too down into this cash burn. This is just the cost of business, and it's going to be a cost that they need to outlay at the moment to get through to type certification. But this leads me on to my next point, is I would like to find out more about the type certification. Currently, they were discussing that in Q3, they were 21% through stage 4 of the certification process with the FAA, and they received their first FAA conforming tail. But let's fast forward now, December 2024, where we heard about the TIA simulator test, and stressing that the tail with the FAA pilots watching. Q4, they've got to update us maybe the 25 to 30% done with stage 4, if not further. They're targeting a full type certification by mid to late 2025, but I would like a more precise timeline showing us, is it in Q3 or Q4 of 2025. I hope in this call that they're going to nail it down and give us specified targets that they need to hit in each quarter in order for them to reach that type certification. They have been working with the FAA for a while now, so I'm hoping that they've got an understanding with each other and they can see the route going forward. But it's not just the FAA that they're dealing with. They're also dealing with multiple different regulatory bodies around the world. And it wouldn't hurt to let us know with where they stand with each of these bodies. Because I know for a fact that they've mentioned that they were aiming for late 2025 for Dubai. So I'd like to know, what is the certification process sitting with Dubai? And is late 2025 realistic? Or was that just a very optimistic target at the time? I think it was also mentioned about in Q3, they had a 30% jump in their final integration efficiency for their 4th aircraft, which was nearly flight ready by November. So I'd imagine in Q4 that this is completely finalized now and it might be flight ready. I'd like them to discuss this in a bit more detail. And I think it's important that we start getting a bit of news, because Archer are leaving them behind in terms of news being released quite regularly. At the moment, I haven't seen much news from Joby since December of 2024. Very similar to this, in terms of their partnerships, like Elevate OS, we haven't really got any sort of indication they're going with Elevate OS and how it's going to be partnered with Joby. What is happening with Elevate OS? It was literally mentioned briefly in Q3 and it hasn't been mentioned since. It's literally as if it was just a flash in the pan. So hopefully in this call, they're going to drill down on what is happening with Elevate OS and what we're expecting to see from it. But I'd like to find out a bit more about that Toyota partnership and that $500 million that they had promised Joby, and see, has it been paid into the accounts yet? I think that will be very telling, and it will also bolster their cash reserve, as I mentioned earlier. I think very similar to this is that cash reserve being used on their Ohio facility, because very similar to Archer, they keep mentioning about their Georgia factory being ready and able to be produced. Are they manufacturing at the moment in this Ohio factory that they've built, supposedly? There just is no information. We're in the dark at the moment, and I'd like to see behind the curtain. I think another important part is that we need to discuss where they're currently sitting in the eVTOL race. Archer just grabbed another $300 million equity in February 2025 for defense. Q4 was Joby's chance to flex its fortress balance sheet and its first mover edge, like the Dubai over Archer in the UAE plans. Their investment in dominance, Q4 will frame it that way. They've got to make their investments their dominance, and Q4 they can frame it that way, loud and proud. But at the moment, they're very silent, and Archer are just dominating the news feed. So it's been a banger of a year, and I think there's quite a lot for that we can look out for. Here are my 5 major questions that I want answered in this Q4 earnings call. So we need to know the exact timeline for the FAA type certification. So in Q3, they avoided a firm date, citing the FAA collaboration, and they were unsure on where it currently stood and what sort of timelines they could expect. But they were 21% of the way through on stage 4 in Q3. I imagine now they must be much further ahead, and they've been carrying out the TIA tests. So what is their revised target? Is it Q2? Is it Q3 of 2025? Or is it going to be later? And will this align with their late 2025 Dubai goal? The second point is about the Toyota investment. They received the first 250 million in Q3, and they expected to receive the next 250 million in Q4. But will this be in Q4, or will it end up being in Q1 of 2025? They need to confirm this, because it determines how much cash reserve they have going forward. I'd also like to find out about the specific manufacturing alliance terms. This second release of the $250 million based on certain goals to be hit, or do they just receive it in Q1 of 2025? They need to confirm what is the agreement between them and Toyota. The third point that I'd like them to discuss is their production scale pace. In Q3, they touted 4 aircrafts with a 5th near completion. But what is their Q4 output goal, and when will Joby hit a steady production rate? And will there be monthly targets in 2025 going forward? The fourth, I'd like to find out what is happening with Elevate OS and what is the integration timeline? And can they confirm, will this multimodal booking, ground to air, be live, and will it be rolled out in Dubai at the end of 2025? Because if it will be, I think it will be monumental for Joby. My fourth question I'd like them to tell us is what is happening with their defense. Archer have had released massive news just last or 2 weeks ago about their $300 million raise for the Archer defense. Are Joby with defense? We need to know. And number 5, last but not least, is the cash burn. Is this going to be profitable? And how do we get to profitability with Joby? I'd like them just to give us a little bit more of an outline and guidance and bring us along with them, because at the moment I feel very in the dark. But thanks very much for listening, guys. If you want to find out what to expect in Archer's earnings call, make sure you give this video a watch, and I'll meet you there.